Good morning. Happy Boston Marathon weekend. I'm sure you've heard that a few times this morning. My name is Regan Cleminson. I own a talent management agency called Coastline Creatives, and I manage Erin here. And that's how we got linked up with Reebok to have this roundtable. We're going to be talking about how brands can effectively work with creators and athletes and get their messaging across while also elevating their mission and the things that make them happy as creators. So I'll do quick intros of all of you. First is Erin, or you probably know her as Mrs. Space Cadet. She is a professional struggle runner, and probably most famously known for just sharing all of the things that are hard about getting out the front door and going on your run. Next down the line, we have Ken Rideout. He is a Reebok athlete. Most recently, in a 17-month period, completed all six marathon majors, won 4 of them in his age division, and came in second for the other 2, which, if you know anything about Ken, he's quite competitive, and he's probably a little miffed about that. And then last but not least, we have Tommie, or more lovingly known as Tommie Runs Online. And he is also on a bit of a world tour right now. Just recently completed Osaka and Tokyo, and is going to be running Boston on Monday, so keep an eye out for him, and then London next weekend. I don't think he's going to be tired at all after that.
No, probably not.
Well, I'm really glad that you've all joined me today. I think the way that I want to start is just talking about the term influencer. Ken, I know you and I talked previously about this, and you definitely have a visceral reaction, and I think it's a pretty natural and kind of common reaction to that word now. So I want to understand what just the term influencer means to you and what you'd prefer to be called.
Ken?
Yeah?
I don't know. I think that there are influencers out there that are running because it's part of their influence. And I think that if there's anything that's been, I don't know, inspiring or attractive about my Instagram profile, it's that it's definitely organic. I started as a runner and a recovering drug addict, and slowly started just posting random shit on Instagram, like with my children and, boring dad stuff. And, occasionally something would get a lot of attention. By a lot, I mean a few hundred people would like it. And in the meantime, I've been profiled in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. I had done the Rich Roll podcast, Cam Hanes, like big podcasts with big followings. And eventually a friend of mine, a kid reached out and started pulling clips for me to share on Instagram. And then things went crazy. And so while I think some people, like I said, start out trying to be an influencer, I was just living my life, and then over time have been just sharing tidbits of the things that I do. But again, I always tell people, Instagram is a highlight reel, right? No one's posting their effing bloopers on Instagram, so I think a lot of times.
And then we have Erin.
Well, that's a good point, because it's either like one or the other, but the bloopers come with a sense of humor, and in other words, I'm not posting me screaming at my kids irrationally and then having to go apologize with tears in my eyes because I'm like a terrible dad. So when people say like, "Oh, you look like such a great dad," I'm like, "Yeah, you only see what I want you to see." I'm like, I'm not good. I'm like trying my hardest though. So anyway, yeah, that's why I don't think of myself as an influencer, but I'm happy to be a source of inspiration where possible.
So, an inspirationer?
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Go ahead, Tommie.
Like for me, influencer, like I'm not a big fan of the word, just because of like some of the negative connotation that comes with it. But the more like I've thought about it, I mean, there's people that I feel like it's a job, like if you want to put it like a job title, like there are people that are influencers that are very good at taking like a product and elevating that product. I mean, it's a talent to do so. There's people who like just have an eye for like highlighting things very well, and I'm okay with that, and that's cool. And then there's people who are athletes, and they show that side of it, where Ken comes in, where he's like pushing and showing like his work and all that stuff. And then there's people, but I think the one thing about the three of us is we all kind of started organically in our way, where we didn't say like, I'm going to be this and I'm going to get a bunch of followers and I'm gonna get paid by brands, It was like, I'm just gonna share what's happening, and then it ended up working out, And it's really cool that we're kind of like, I was like, why pick us three, you know? But I think it's like, it's all organic starts. And I feel like there's creators that are really great at also highlighting, but just like in a more like cinematic type of way. And then there's people that literally just share the journey. And those people are very flexible. I mean, because you can highlight a brand, but you're really more focused on the personal journey that then inspires other people to either share their story or go do a thing.
I don't have much of an opinion on it. I just feel like influencer as a term is such a umbrella thing, and it's like a spectrum where, like they both said, we started organically, but there's also people that set out to just make money, I guess, and you know, people can really call me what they want. If that's influencer, that's fine, but I also understand like the negative connotations, because I'm sure like podcasts that you've been on specifically talk a little negatively about influencers. But I mean, we're influencing in some way. Maybe you're influencing someone to like get back into running, or you're influencing someone to like push harder and win races. So, I mean,
Can
it's
I
a
add
word.
to that? Yeah, so I think that I like the word influence, you know, and I think that we all have our own separate influence, and an influencer thing kind of makes it like, oh, he's, you know, like, not to shame the Kardashians or whatever, because they do amazing jobs or whatever whatever they're doing.
Shout out Kim.
Yeah, shout out Kim. If you're Kim, if you're watching, you know, what up though? But like, honestly, I think it's like these two like have an amazing influence on who they are talking to, and they're really talking to like people like themselves. So like, if someone says that they influence me to do a marathon or like run a 5K, like I don't think you've never influenced me to do like run across the desert, but me watching you do it is like, okay, I can do a 5K, you know, like that's influence.
I think that part of my message to people is like, I am like the most average person you'll ever meet. I genuinely believe that. I was a drug addict. I played Division III sports in college. You just had to show up and sign up and you were on the team. But the one thing that I do know is above average with me is my mindset. And when I set out to do something like even with running, people are like, oh, we're gonna go do a fun run. I'm like, running isn't fun to me. This is work. This is like what I do. It's like the way I express myself. It's like my therapy. But I would never tell someone else, you should have my process. This is just my process. But I think sometimes people get frustrated when it's like, you're not having enough fun out there. I'm like, fucking leave me alone. I'm doing my journey. Like, you do yours. So I'm not trying to tell you that you should go out and want to kill everyone at a race, but that's how I vent my frustrations with myself. So.
Do you find, because I think we all alluded to some creators where it's very obvious that they sought out to be influencers first and to like land in a space, do you find that you trust them less as somebody who's in the space, or is it
yes,
just
trust them less.
Trust them less, and like, do you just pass over? Are you still interested to hear what they have to say?
Pass.
Yeah, so if I can, I'm like, just don't answer. Yeah, I feel like if it's like, that's why I said I feel like it's a job, you know, like, and if it's done well and you are able to take a product and then showcase that product and do that well, I don't think that there has to be trust in that. Like, it's tell me what the shoe does and what it's for, and show it great and entertain for the how many seconds that reel is or YouTube story is or whatever, and then I have that information, and you know, thank you. I think it's like where the lines can be kind of crossed is if you're trying to play different things where it's like, no, you can trust me and believe everything I say because it's 100% true and this is how I feel, but I love everything that's ever been in a video. Like, I think that's kind of where it can get kind of gray area. But if you're just like objectively, like shoe reviewers do a great job at that. Like, they're just objectively reviewing a shoe. And if they love the last 100 shoes, it is what it is. You get to decide whether you want to go buy that shoe or not. But I think it's like when someone tries to cross that line of like, I'm just saying how I feel about everything, but then they're also trying to influence you to do it. That's a tough space, and I have to navigate that space as well. So it's like, I understand the issues with it, and I try my best to present everything more with me focused. And if I just happen to have a brand on, it is what it is.
It's a fine line of wanting to have some positivity on your channel and maybe not have any negativity on your channel. Like, you don't want to talk about brands you don't like. And so there is this sense of like opting in to how you want to partner with brands, but also who you want to partner with. So in a sense, everything that lives on your channel you might like because you want to talk about it. And so I think there is this discourse of, do I share all the things I also don't like so that you guys know everything on my channel is something that I actually enjoy? But what is that just self-serving because you want people to trust you more? Or is it something where you're adding value, sharing the things that you don't personally enjoy? I don't know. I think that's just a dilemma that we have to work through.
I think, to go back to the original question, it really depends on why I'm following someone. Like for me, I don't really care too much about shoe technology, for example, but I usually follow people because I feel like I can relate to them in some way. So I find that I do trust those people, and a lot of the times they aren't someone that I think set out to be an influencer, because it's like less product driven and more about their life and what they're going through.
Speaking of influencers, there's a few in Boston this weekend.
I haven't seen any.
Yeah, just the invisible posse moving around Boston, right? There's a lot in the city. Do you feel like we're hitting an inflection point when it comes to world majors right now where there's just too many, doing too many things? Or do you like the fact that there's opportunities to interact with different folks who kind of exist in different spaces within the running world? Like, is there too much choice now?
I feel like as a whole there's too much choice, but everyone has their own type of person that they follow or brands that they follow. So one person isn't going to be interested in doing every single thing. I think it's good that there's a lot of choice, but like for me personally, if I have my own event, I'm like, oh, but then I can't go to like alleys or something. I don't know. Yeah. So there is a lot, but I think it's a good thing.
I love the fact that the playing field has been leveled for anyone. Like I was telling my children this the other day, they're really into like Dude Perfect and videos. I said, I promise you, if you put content out there that's good, people will find you. You don't need to go to Hollywood to be an actor anymore. That girl Isha Rae, who made the show on HBO, I think it's called Insecure, she was making a YouTube show, probably felt like she couldn't get arrested, and the YouTube show just blew up, and now she's got deals with HBO. She's got TV shows and movies everywhere, but she did that on her own. She created her own luck, and speaking of everyone having their own following, one of the things that happened to me recently as a result of this, putting out this content of video interviews that I've done, the Rock followed me, and I was like, that can't be the real Rock. And I said, hey man, thanks for following, loved your interview with Joe Rogan. Minute later, I was showing someone a minute ago, he sent me a voice memo like, hey brother, Rock here, love your content, love going on your page, I'm so inspired. I was like, I called my wife, Shelby, get the effing kids down here right now. You're not gonna believe this. And my kids were like, Dad, the Rock knows you're alive? We just watched Jumanji last night. And I was like, and now we've become friendly. He sends me voice memos all the time. I'm like, does this guy know what an idiot I am? I can't believe this, but that's without social media, without Instagram, like I don't have the opportunity to connect with someone like that. So in that regard, I love it for everyone. I think that the fact that it's so accessible is important because it allows the people who are actually doing real shit and making a difference in the world to like rise to the top. You ain't getting there by accident. You can fake your way through and buy some followers, but that shit gets exposed eventually and ultimately, because I know even for myself, when I see someone posting nonsense, I'm like, unfollow. This is crazy. This is a waste of my time, or I have to mute them because it's just so boring. So I think about that when I post my own stuff, like, is this interesting? Like, is anyone gonna find this interesting? And it's, especially when people post too much about their kids, because I love posting things about my kids, but I'm like, am I that pain in the ass dad who's like, dude, no one cares about your damn kids. The only people that like your kids are you. And even that's debatable.
So it is a new level of access. And Tommie, I want to hear your take on it because you've probably been to more events than anybody I know this weekend. Do you feel like it's too much at this point? Is there like too many things on offer that you can't even get to it all? And is that okay?
I mean, I wish there was like everyone had a meeting and then just like set times that were like appropriate for everyone else, and then like it was just a full day of you could just stand in one spot and all the events happen. That'd be great, like a festival in one spot. That'd be sweet. But like it's tough to bounce around. And like you guys being here, like kind of off the beaten path, it shows a lot, and I'm sure you guys are here for them. But it's like it's fun, it's cool. I love the access. I love the fact that it's level in a way that there's more representation for anyone, and it doesn't even have to be like the 1 million follower type of person. There's people that are involved in shakeouts that have 2,000 followers or 3,000 or whatever. But the fact is that the brand or whoever saw the value in what that person represents. And I think that that's the most important part. I mean, it sucks scheduling it and like working around. You got to make your choices. But like you said, though, I follow Erin for a reason. I don't have you muted at all. So can you unmute me? That'd be great. But like if you follow somebody for a reason, so I think it's cool. It's fun. It's kind of weird to talk about. Like, oh, it sucks that there's so many, but it's. All in all, I think everyone's happy. No one's gonna go home complaining and say like, anything negative about it. If you missed an event, you missed an event, and just you follow my Instagram, you'll see them again.
Is there anything you want to see more of? I know Erin's gonna say shakeouts, but
there's not enough shakeouts at all. Like I feel like there should be.
That's what we need more of is more shakeout runs. Absolutely, multiple a day, especially if you're running the marathon. Don't get off your feet.
I got an idea though.
Oh yeah, share. I like your festival idea, by the way.
I mean, I'm full of ideas, guys.
It's the expo, is it not?
Yeah, sure. I mean, okay. So here's the idea. This is a real idea. Somebody filming.
Look right into the camera.
So the idea would be sweet to do like a half marathon of shakeouts. If you like literally go from like one shakeout to the next, but they're all like coordinated, and you go back to back to back to back to back shakeouts. Like you'd hand off to another brand or hand off to another influencer and then just keep going. So it'd be like you'd be able to run with all your influencers that you love all at one shot, 13.1 miles.
When you hand off to one influencer and the whole crowd drops out, it's going to be devastating.
Yeah. So you got to be that first one. I mean, no, but you got to finish the half though.
Yeah, you better put the most influential at the end.
No, you make it really expensive so they don't drop out.
Right.
Like all other races?
Yep.
So another cohort of people that I would say are brought out on this weekend are elite athletes. And I think oftentimes they are anticipated to act just like influencers. And I want your take on how can we let them just be elite athletes and go and focus on their race, or are they obligated to their contract to come out and say nice things? Or should they be more focused on like individually propelling their brand and making sure that they're also being social media influencers on top of being athletes?
I have strong opinions on this.
No.
When athletes are complaining about like prize money in their sport, like running, for instance, guess what? You're your own brand. Get out there and work hard. And like, no one said it was easy. Yeah, it sucks that you have to come and do influencer stuff if you're trying to win the marathon. Yeah, but guess what? Work sucks in general. Like, life isn't easy. Life isn't fair. Like, cry me a river. Get out there and work. Like, if you want people to know your story and know your struggle, it's up to you to share it. And if anything, when there's elite athletes that I've been on panels with, I feel like you're never going to be this guy. He's running a 2:10 marathon or a 2:05 marathon. Anyone can be me. I'm a drug addict. I've just like decided I was done being mediocre at life and pushed it, and I documented everything that I did. Here's every run that I did is available on Strava. So in that regard, like it's on all of us to make of what we want from the life that we chose. You want to be a professional athlete? Cool. If you want to make money, you better get out there and work for your brands, or just go be an athlete and be comfortable being broke. No big deal, but you can't have both. You can't be like closed off to the idea of going and promoting your brand and just focusing on your race and then cry when no brands want to work with you. That's just life. I mean, everyone in here has their own struggles, right? I mean, I'd love for it to dictate to everyone, this is how I want to be treated. Someone drive me to the airport. Like, fuck out of here. Like, take care of yourself.
They got Uber. Yeah. No, I think it's. I mean, I guess I haven't. He's been much closer to like professional athletes than I have, you know, and I feel like it's just a missed opportunity for some pro athletes that are in a weird like space when like a 210 marathoner, if they're not from the U.S. You don't know them, you know, unless they have a social media platform and they share their journey and things like that. So I just feel like it's a missed opportunity, and I feel like Ken, you do a great job at that. Like, I mean, it's, you know, you say you're average, but you don't run very average. So he runs really well, runs really fast, but then he also shares the part that makes him more like we can connect to you more. You tell your story, and that's how like people follow you. And let's just say you're a professional athlete and you have like 10 bad races in a row, but you shared your story throughout the process, and even while you were having like the worst time of your professional career, you somehow were gaining like traction with real people that really signed on to what you are doing and believe in. Then brands look at that and say like, you know, we would love for you to run faster, but we really like you and we really like what you mean to these people. So we just we'll stay on, or we'll add this and you get to go here or there. And then you got to think about like what happens after the career. Like if you just like head down and you're just like, I got to get to this next PR, or I got to win this race, and you don't become Kipchoge, then you are just kind of out of luck at the end. And I mean, I don't really know, I'm not out of luck, but you didn't set yourself up to like stay close to what you love, which is running. And you know, even Kipchoge at the highest level, like, I mean, he has a team around him, but he does a great job at like staying in front of people, and he does all the stuff. And if he was here this weekend, you'd see him do all the things until like maybe right now, and he'd be in his room sleep or whatever. But it's just, you have to do it, you know? I mean, we wouldn't even know Ken. Like, if you didn't, I mean, honestly, if you won all the stuff you won, but you just refused to, like, share anything, I mean, somebody would know you because they're, like, running fans, but we just wouldn't be able to, like, benefit from hearing.
Yeah, everyone has the insecurities about like, I mean, I question every post that I make. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get trolled badly for this one, and eventually I hired a kid to help me, and he sends me a clip, and I'm like, I don't want to post that, and then he's like, trust me on this, and it gets more comments and followers than any of the other stuff. So I realized I can't trust myself with this content, because ultimately I feel like a narcissist when I post anything, but at some point you've got to put the emotional bullshit to the side and just do your thing. Like, it's work, you know, and it's like you get back exactly what you put into it. If you don't share anything, then don't be surprised when no one knows who you are. And I try to be very honest with the Instagram stuff, including like bad races and especially bad workouts, because that happens to everyone. It's like life. You can't make an assessment on where you are physically by one workout or two workouts. The whole message behind my Instagram is consistency. Just keep showing up. Just keep piling up. Don't worry about good days, bad days. Just get a lot of days, and eventually you can't help but to be better.
I think I want to direct this at Erin, because I think you, at the athletic level that you are, you're kind of a unicorn in a way, because you do feature a lot of elite athletes on your page, and they also gravitate towards you. And do you feel, as somebody who's participating in this running community and who has an audience that is in the running community, a sense of responsibility to share those athletes and educate people on the sport?
Yeah, I mean, there's sports that I never even heard of, like dressage. I don't know, the horse dancing. There's like, so, yeah, and I mean, so anyway, I don't feel like a responsibility, but I feel like we know the power of social media, but a lot of professional athletes, like not like Ken, maybe don't, and that wasn't part of their career. But I find that like when I do feature them in one of my style interviews in the mix zone, they see, you know, a bump in their socials, and also how easy it is. I'm just asking them a couple questions, it makes a funny video, and then there's also like that relationship that we build, and you know, if I'm at another event, they kind of gravitate toward me a little more. So I think it's more rewarding for me, honestly, to help them, but I don't really feel a responsibility. I do understand how it could be weird for some of the elite athletes because, I mean, it's kind of new a little bit, like the social media aspect of it. And so when they were like training and on the up and up, they probably weren't anticipating like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a Nike contract, it's gonna have this many social things that I have to do. It's probably a little unexpected in a way, but now, I mean, they're right, it's just name of the game. Yeah.
Tommie, you do a good job at showcasing elite athletes, mostly through relay or any of the events that you do at TRE last year. You ask the hard-hitting questions, and I would say you live in a space between people who are like total track heads or like people who follow marathons very heavily or just like distance running in general, and then folks like I would say who are more in Erin's audience who have no idea what the elite field is this weekend. How do you find that you successfully like bridge that gap and kind of live in that middle ground where you're maybe extracting stories from some of these elite athletes and giving them a platform to have a little bit more personality?
Yeah, so I think it kind of came from like my experience. I mean, I'm not fast at all, especially in comparison to other folks that are actually fast. But I thought
Tommie's pretty fast.
No, no, like literally not. But I thought because getting a PR and like pushing myself was like very part of like my journey. I share like in addiction. I'm also a recovering alcoholic, so I've been sober for like 7 years. And I thought that in part of my process after getting sober and moving forward was I found running, and I thought that running was like the closest physical comparison to like my alcoholic journey, in that day in, day out, take one day at a time, everything's better if you keep on pushing yourself. So I thought it was all about my numbers, but then I actually realized that people care if you PR and they're like happy for you if you have a good race, but once I started like accidentally sharing the fact that I was like I'm a recovering alcoholic and all these other things that I have going on.
One moment.
He's like, yeah. If it's The Rock, answer.
FaceTime.
Yeah. What's up, brother? But like it's once I shared my story and what really drove me to run and why I run, then that's when people started like reaching out and like saying like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and I'm sober this long, and I have people that have struggled with addiction, and really started making that connection. I realized that like these professional athletes are also people as well, and they've also gone through way more than we could probably imagine. And so I started asking questions that have nothing to do with running, because I don't care. I don't care what like Kipchoge's VO2 max is. I mean, it's just not going to matter to me because it wouldn't help anybody in this room. So it's like, let's ask questions that like really mean something, and let's like figure out what makes these people tick. Like I had Ken on the show, and I just tried my best to not talk about running, like like about the races, because every podcast you go on, it's like, how'd you feel at mile 20? And it's like I'm sure I can relate to that, but how did you push through it? Like, where are your thoughts? How are you human? And that's really what I find fun, is like talking to people about things that the audience may not have heard before. Like even when I had Erin on the show, so Erin's like, I know Erin's funny, and like obviously if you follow her, you like probably laugh a lot as well as just like scrolling through. But I found like one of the things that like really impressed me with you was like I got off of that podcast like inspired, because you're much more serious and like thought provoking, and I feel like you're bigger in the space than I really imagined, because of the way that you process things that you're doing. And I think that people need to hear more about like the other side that we don't show and that athletes don't show. Is like how are you the way you are? And I think that that's the most important part.
Thanks. I like that.
That was very nice. Thank you, Tommie.
I want to switch gears a little bit. As you're all athletes, you too, Erin.
Thank you.
There is a physicality to the work that you do, whether that means you're running on behalf of a brand, or you are, creating content that requires you to run in the desert, or you are lifting dumbbells in your basement. And I want to know, what do you want brands to know when they're asking you to do these things that require like you to use your body to do your job? What is the thing that they should be keeping in the back of their minds to make sure that they're honoring and working with you in the best way possible?
Be aware of weather. If you would like me outside running through my cornfields, it may be a monsoon with lightning. And so maybe give a little extra leeway there. No, but I just like the nature of my content. I feel like brands at this point are very much like, just do what you're already doing. And so I can naturally fit it into like, oh, I have a run today. Okay, I'll film this. So I don't feel like it's demanding on me just because of how my content is. I'm sure there's other fast people that...
Although I want to give you a little credit. You travel a lot.
Right. There's also that.
You have to get around.
Yeah.
And there is a physicality to just getting from point A to point B and
Right.
not sleeping in your own bed.
Yeah.
That's something that I think needs to still be articulated to brands, and like, hey, keep in mind, like, this is exhausting, and you're asking a lot of me, because if you're on a brand trip, or if you're even just spectating in a specific race or event, it's going to require a lot of your energy, and it's largely going to be a full day thing.
Absolutely. And also, like, I have kids, so being away from them is, I feel like, a little daunting physically and mentally, but yeah, I think it's things that also a brand needs to keep in mind, that a lot of us have multiple different like events or partnerships at the same time. So just having that kind of understanding, like, yeah, this is just maybe one full day, but I also have X, Y, and Z that I'm also working on. Yeah.
Tommie, meanwhile, you work with brands who support you running marathons. And how do you manage their expectations about how you're going to perform in those marathons? Or do they care?
I don't think they care. And let's kind of go back to, I'll answer like kind of both of them at the same time. One thing that I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm black, so it's like, I'm surprised, shocked you. But it's like, it's very important to me that I am true to like who I am and how I was raised, and the people that I naturally appeal to. And I'm very aware that there's less black people in the running space than I would like for there to be, and hopefully one day that will continue to grow and all that good stuff. But I want to make sure that that when brands approach, it's like Erin's done a great job, and Ken as well, like creating a thing that when a brand picks up the phone or emails you to call, they already know what they're getting, and they already know like why they're coming to you. And I feel like as a black creator or a black runner, it doesn't always happen that way, where it's like, okay, like, oh, hey, we're gonna send you this shoe. We got 3 briefs for you. One of them is, these shoes are waterproof, so you could be in a tub with them on. I would my friends would never talk to me again if I like had, I have to respect like who I am, and even if it's really fun and cool and it sounds funny and stuff like that, and even I may think it's funny, if Erin did it, I can't do it, and I have to stay 100. And that's back to like the trust part. I have to do to a fault. I have to do what feels right to the people that I know and that I represent. And if that means I have like less followers because it's not a viral thing, then I'm okay with that, as long as it's true. And so like when brands say like, hey, come to this race and run with us, I'm only gonna do what I feel is best for them, even in going, because if I change because of this brand, everybody that follows me for that reason, it was like, that's whack. Yeah.
Well, 2 things. Like I said earlier before the run, I have what most rich people don't have, and that's enough. I don't do anything that doesn't fit with what I'm all about. I would never compromise my integrity to put up some social media content for any amount of money. However, when I do agree to work with a brand, I'll help you bury a dead body if that's what you need. Like if you hire, I want people to be like, oh, we hired Ken, he'll do anything. Like I said, outside of compromising my integrity. I'm not going to do that. But if you need me to like put them on and get in the bathtub, do I want to do this? If I do, but when I work with a brand, like I said, life isn't fair. Like doing this instead of real work is a dream come true. I worked for 25 years in finance. I was a banker for ages, and I made a lot more money doing it, but I was miserable. Now I'm a happy person. My kids have a better dad. But at the same time, like I said, life isn't fair. If you make a commitment to a brand and they need you to do something like within reason, everyone understands the ground rules in advance, like I'll do whatever you need me to do without making myself look silly.
But I mean, I think to a point though, because like, you know, like if you like did something that was really fun or something, and you like, you wouldn't do it. You know, like it's you still are who you are, and you'll work for the brand well and give everything you have. But at some point, you know, like I don't know how, like you have all these followers, you know, like the 1,000 followers that you're really talking to, and you got to be true to those. You know, like you really do, because if you don't, then you'll lose them. And then the rest of it doesn't even matter anymore, because then now you're not even doing work that's meaningful to yourself.
That's exactly right.
And yeah, not to say like it's like I'm higher than like, oh, I'm not gonna do that, I'm like this or whatever. It's just, if you come to work with me, I just need you to understand like why I need you to be coming to work with me. Not because I don't want you to come to work with me because I'm black. That's not the case. But I mean, if that's the vibe where it starts at, then great. But I'm not going to do something that doesn't align with my like pillars or whatever, you know.
I do think brands are still, not all, but I do think there are some brands that lean in towards tokenism a little bit more. And I think it should honestly swing in the total opposite direction. People of color should be given more creative freedom. They should be given the opportunity to engage their community in a more meaningful way. Like that is how you start to establish parity. That's how you start to give people a voice. And to me, if they're just like slamming you with briefs all the time, nobody wants to. I can't imagine anybody on this panel would enjoy receiving a brief that has talking points and like, sure, maybe a couple hashtags in there, but like that's not gonna do anybody any good at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just and like I said, like the representation part, like all the influencers this weekend and creators this weekend have so many different backgrounds. And I mean, what I say, like for me as a black creator, like pertains to any background or choice or whatever. Like whatever you represent, like you need to stay true to that in a sense. And brands need to kind of see the overall picture. Like, okay, like what is this person? What's the value of this person? And not like how, like what brief looks good and we can send it to 10 of them and they all do the same thing. Like it, you know, if you care about like how your brand's represented in to each person's following, like you just need to let them do their thing. Like, you know, Reebok could send us all a shoe and say like, here's what here's the hashtags that we want you to use. Please do your thing with it. And that's what it should be. Don't send us all the same email. I mean, because it's not, one of us is going to be true to, and the other two is not. You know, and it doesn't matter which way it worked, and it shouldn't be like that.
I agree. I think there's an easy button for promoting products, and then there's a way of successfully promoting products, and they're generally not the same, and they take more time. I think one of the things that like you talked about a little bit is, or maybe even alluded to, is with weather as an example. I need time for like the ideal circumstance to be able to create this thing. And so often, as somebody who's on the receiving end of thousands of emails a week, so often they want something next week. And they want it exactly how they want it.
And then they want the monsoon.
Yeah. And then there's a monsoon.
It happens.
Yep. And oh, by the way, they want to have 5 days to review it, but you have 24 hours to create it. Or like the contract doesn't even get signed before the partnership actually has to go live. I think the piece of feedback that I would give based on some of what you're saying is like, give things a little bit more time to breathe so that we can all land on something that's going to feel natural.
And also in a way, there can be a bit of an easy button, but let us talk to our audience. And I think that is missing in a lot of briefs and a lot of brands, which is like a hard no for me, and probably you guys as well. But I feel like that's a simple, like a little leeway that they could give that makes something very successful, because I feel like my audience is very specific to me, and I don't want to show something because it's benefiting me. I'm like, you guys are gonna freaking love these leggings because they're not gonna roll down and they're not gonna fall down, you know. But his audience doesn't care. Like, so like we can both represent Reebok, for example, and give very different things to our different audiences.
And I have to give a shout out to Will at Reebok because he's like, of all the brands I've ever worked with, he's the easiest by far.
Yeah.
I was telling him today, I take pride in this. You only have to tell me something once. Don't beat me over the head with what I need to do. I'm an old man with 4 children. I don't need detailed instructions. But I said with Will, when he says show up head to toe Reebok, I'm like, okay, you don't have to tell me twice. I know exactly what he means, but we have a good working relationship, and that's one of the reasons I love working with the brand. I like the shoes, but I like working with Will. It's just easy. It's like, it's not overwhelming. But when someone doesn't give me a list of requirements, I want to deliver value for them. I want him to be like, oh, we worked with Ken. He's the best. He shows up. You don't have to tell him what to do. Yeah. You know, you just have to live with how he does it.
This is a question to all of you, but do you feel the most valued when you have the creative freedom? Or are there other things that make you feel more valued, like, you know, money?
I pay all my bills with shoes. I send them shoes and they go, okay, cool, lights on for another year, you know?
I mean, for me, it's 100% creativity. Like, because if a brand's coming to me with that, I feel trusted, and they know that I just want to talk to my audience. We can go from there easily, but I do feel very valued when I have some creative freedom and to do things the way I know is most effective. But I mean, I've seen the whole spectrum, so yeah, it can be difficult.
I actually prefer when they tell, like if they have something specific, I prefer them to send me an exact script because I have no creative ability. I question everything that I do. I think it all stinks. I do an interview, I'm like, that was the worst interview. Normally the worse that I thought it went, the better the response is, so I've learned to just not trust myself. But honestly, when it comes to content for Instagram, I'm like, if you want something specific, tell me exactly what you want and I'll give it to you because I don't trust myself to create an ad.
I think, too, that comes from the fact that you only partner with people that you know that you have a trusting relationship with to begin with.
Yeah, it has to be stuff
That's
that
a
I really
privilege.
use.
That's a privilege for anybody who's either in the audience or watching. We're recording this for, you know, posterity and longevity. But for anybody who's watching who's in this space, how do you initiate that conversation with the brand? Is it just saying, hey, I want to move into a long-term relationship and slow this down a little bit and say, hey, let's see, like, what are actually your goals? Yes, I know you want to sell XYZ shoe, but what are actually your goals? And then let me tell you about my goals, because I think we can find an intersection there. Do you find that that's kind of the best approach?
Well, I mean, just to kind of answer the other one, is like, I feel like I love emails, like with if opening up a conversation and an opportunity with kind of introducing like why they even want to work with me, but then also like where they're trying to go with the relationship, and then like if they throw some money in there in the email as well, or like the idea of like we value what you do, but then we want to also show you that we value what you do. Because I think a lot of you know, that back to kind of like the tokenism a little bit. There was like, you get those emails where like you can tell the person that's sending the email has watched your content and they see the value in it, but then because maybe you're new to the space or like what you represent is new to the space, then they just say like, oh, and we'll, you know, it's gonna be a great experience, you know, or like we'll throw you.
That is the worst line in an email.
You'll get some what do they call it? Exposure, you know, and exposure.
It's a dirty word.
Yeah. I'm not even answering your question, but like, is the whole exposure thing, and which I just recently learned, I don't necessarily want that much of, because like if you do a reel that's with a company or something, and it gets so many views because of whatever, right? Then all of a sudden you start getting like these comments that don't normally align with like who your following is, and then all of a sudden you start getting like DMs and that are weird. And I'm like, oh, I don't even want your eyes. Like, whoever just said this in the thing, in the comment, and I'm like, I'm about to respond to it. I'm like, oh, well, this is a collaborator. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't necessarily want to be seen by the people that would say something terrible about me. Like, you know, like I've like just recently like saw like 5 comments from this reel that did really well that like I had to like put my phone down and like back away. Like, okay, is it worth me like saying something to this person? But then I realized like, okay, exposure isn't what I need. I need more. I want the platform to be able to share a story that maybe helps other people, and that's it. And if only, 1,000 people see that, I'm all right with it.
I really like that take. You don't want to be overexposed. I think there's a lot of influencers in this space who are overexposed, and it goes back to what we like originally talked about at the beginning of the talk of people just saying yes to everything, that they love everything, and people get tired of that. It sounds like a broken record. And so if you have the ability to control that and you have the privilege to be able to say no to a lot of things, I think that that's powerful to be able to exercise that. But we have to acknowledge that not everyone has the privilege to be able to say no to everything that doesn't quite align. And I think the take that brands should have on this is allow for some flexibility. Like, the folks who are sitting here want to make a great living doing this. And so let's find a middle ground. It's not all or nothing. It's not this like binary interaction. All right, well, if anybody has any questions out there, this is the only time I've ever done this type of roundtable live. We usually just like record it in a studio. But if anyone does have a question, I'd love to open it up.
I'd like to just say, well, number one, thank you, Coastline Creatives, for inviting me.
And Reebok.
In Reebok.
Yes,
you did a
thank
really
you.
great job. But I mean, honestly, like for the fact, like I told people that I was going to be on a panel with Ken Rideout and Erin Azar, and every time I said I beat them to him, like I don't know why, But I really appreciate the invite and to be able to share my thoughts on this whole like creator and influencer space or whatever. So thank you so much, Reebok, for having me. Thank you, Coastline Creatives, for inviting me, and thanks for letting me share the dais or whatever this is called with you guys.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And Tommie, you're a great addition, so don't put yourself down like that.
He's the addition.
I know,
Oh, no,
exactly.
Don't
say I don't know why.
When I get in the Uber, I'm gonna be talking all type of shit to my friends or whatever. But yeah, no, it's just cool to. I appreciate what you put together here, and it makes so much sense to me, like why you picked the 3 of us now, and appreciate it. And this track jacket is fly.
You look really good in it.
Don't worry, Reebok will cut that for you so you can use it somewhere. With Tommie's permission and a licensing agreement, of course.
An email with a $sign.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.